Welcome back to the Motion Podcast. Today is a solo episode. I'm excited to jump on for a solo episode. I don't think I've done a solo episode in a long time, I don't think. Life's been pretty hectic lately. New drop is coming out very, very soon. We've just got, our bulk coming in. So we've just paid for all that. I'm very excited. I think this is my favorite drop we've done, just because I like the logo and like the message behind it. Like more like the Aussie, like bringing like our Australian culture into the brand, which I think is very, very different. So I'm very excited to kind of just get those shirts out and see if people like those ones. You can jump on all the updates on YouTube, my YouTube, Miles's YouTube, if you want to see what is going on behind the scenes of our brand. Today I thought I would kind of just talk about more like self-respect and sort of self-criticism. I think it's just important to kind of just like remember like self-talk is so important, and we live in such a fast-paced society that we can get caught up in that like go mindset and like not really listening to our body's needs and like what we need, and it can like lead to burnout and like just more like that harsh inner dialogue that we have with ourselves, and it's being really, really hard on ourselves. So more like just shifting away from like that negative self-talk and more shifting into like a more like compassionate mindset, because staying in these toxic negative thoughts is actually hurting our body, hurting our nervous system, which is like what we talked about in like a few episodes before as well. Like me and Miles spoke about that. So you have like two different sides of like, I guess like what we both think about like health, you should say. So it is very common to actually think like this. Like I noticed like a lot of women actually do think like this because we do get really caught up. And I think we as women tend to get more caught up in like that self-criticism mindset and really putting ourselves down, which then hurts our hormones even more. So hopefully you enjoy this episode and let's get into it. So what is self-criticism and why do we tend to do it? Why do we tend to be so hard on ourselves? I really think it is due to society, our upbringing, just comparison, as well as that perfectionism mindset as well. It can really manifest in our lives, and how it can show up in our lives, that harsh inner dialogue, never feeling good enough, not really giving yourself enough credit for what you achieve. You're always like, just like, and then move on. Avoiding like risks essentially because you're scared to fail. And the impact of this is obviously it causes more self-criticism. You're going to keep tearing yourself down more and more and more. And that can just really manifest into anything. Or if we're always looking for negative things to happen, they're going to keep manifesting in our lives, or like, this should be hard, or like, why is it so hard, or like, because you're manifesting that type of outcome. And you're telling yourself, I'm so far behind, or not feeling good enough, or like I haven't done enough today. And we can really get caught up in being like, I should do more. When you notice you say that to yourself, you feel like really beat up inside, and you probably feel more anxious. You're getting really like worked up and stuff like that as well. It can become from like our upbringing, the comparison, perfectionism type of thing, and like that anxiety as well. And like obviously the social pressure of like always doing more and having to keep going. People can portray like whatever they want to online. So they're always going to only show the parts that you want them to see, and they'll only say what they want you to hear, and they want you to think, oh, if I say this, they'll probably think that they're a good person. They probably think like, oh, like that person must know what they're talking about, when in reality, they're probably just saying it for attention. They're probably just saying it to make you trust them, when in reality, they probably aren't doing that all the time. And especially like for women, rest is so important, and how we speak to ourselves is very, very important. I do feel like we have adapted like this kind of like hustle, like kind of toxic culture, which I was stuck in for about like 3-4 years, which is nothing wrong with. I just was putting so much pressure on myself to be better all the time. I would compare myself to other people. I would be training 6 days a week. I wouldn't sleep very well. I'd be waking up at 2 a.m. Would just always be sore, always be tired, always be angry, always be frustrated, always be overwhelmed by little tasks. And I think that was just because my thoughts were so caught up in like negative thought patterns. And when you stop thinking that way and you start to think a different way, you don't realize how much those thoughts actually consumed you until you flip the perspective and you see it in a different light. Because I do believe that whatever we focus on, it grows. So if you keep focusing on like all the hard things or negative things, it's going to grow, manifest. But if you actually give your body time to just relax and like actually reset itself, it's going to want to perform better. And this is where I feel like a lot of people feel like rest is weak. And when in reality, rest is not weak. It actually helps you perform. Like if you think about a car, if you put your foot on the gas for so long in a car, it's eventually going to run out of fuel. And the reason why it's running out of fuel is because you haven't even given it the fucking chance to step on the brake. So it's like you're trying to step on the gas and step on the brake at the same time. It's not going to work. So I really like that analogy, because it's like you have to give car fuel and you have to obviously rest and like give it fuel to like fuel up. I don't know why that analogy works for me, but for anyone who likes analogies, I guess, because it eventually needs to stop and you have to eventually fill it up to keep going. So that's why I feel like rest is like very overlooked, and signs that you may be like not prioritizing rest. I don't believe in like burnout, but I do believe in like your body will show you signs that it's fucking had enough, to be honest. Like poor sleep, feeling like restless when you like sit down, not being able to be present, you're always thinking about something, and yeah, you just really run down and you feel like your body is like fatigued almost, and you're probably like really anxious all the time. You probably lack a lot of confidence. You're probably like insecure as well, and you probably don't really trust yourself or believe in yourself to like really just sit with yourself, and just really just having enough trust in your body, and like just being like not really listening to your body as well. And this is what I got caught up in for like 3-4 years, was like not listening to my body, not really listening to what it was telling me, like the thoughts I was telling myself over and over again, not really catching the thoughts out but letting them play over and over again. Then the anxiety would take over and I'd be like, oh my God, like I'm so anxious, like what do I do? But not really giving myself enough space to let emotions pass, but more like resisting them in a way. So like whatever you resist, you hold on to. So let's talk about the difference between self-respect and self-esteem. So self-respect is kind of just like what you value yourself as a person and like what you hold value to as a person as well. So like it could be like how you show up day to day and like how you respect yourself. So for example, if you go to the gym, that's a form of self-respect because you're showing yourself a form of self-care essentially. Meditating, a form of like a lack of self-respect, but like waking up and not having a proper breakfast, or waking up and, you know, not drinking enough water or not getting enough sleep. That's like kind of like not really respecting yourself. And another form of like a lack of self-respect would obviously be like how you talk to yourself as well, because you don't really respect the thoughts that you like obviously consume. So your diet is your thoughts. It's what you put in your body. It's what you do every single day, what you listen to every single day, and probably more things that I can't list right now. But those, all of those things like are your diet. And like if your diet is good, but your self-talk is negative, you'll still be unhealthy, basically. You'll still always be unhealthy because your thoughts and how you talk to yourself is everything. So self-esteem is more like, how can I say it? It's more like, let's say if you get a compliment, now you're going to be confident because you had a compliment from someone. Your self-esteem is like emotional, where like that self-respect is like, no, like I value myself as a person and I know my value, and whatever someone says to me, whatever someone does to me, like, you know that deep down, like I don't deserve that, or like you deserve better as a person, or like you know your worth essentially. So I feel like that's where like that self-respect comes in, and like you take action because you have respect for yourself. So I feel like it's more like the confidence of taking action, and I feel like that is what self-respect is. So like even on days when you don't feel confident, this is where like I feel like that's when the self-criticism can really take over. It's like when days where you feel really low, or like haven't had enough sleep last night, or something's come up and it makes you kind of like knock your confidence down a little bit. So how do you treat yourself on those days, and how do you set boundaries, and how do you show up for your well-being even on those days where it is kind of hard, and how do you talk to yourself on those hard days? So this is how like self-respect can show up in your life. So self-respect helps you speak to yourself with kindness, basically. It shifts how you handle setbacks, and it shifts mistakes, and it shifts like moments of doubt, moments of fear, and you can change it into a positive. And if we don't have this, we're always going to be stuck in this negative feedback loop as well. So without that self-respect, you're saying things to yourself like, I always mess up, I'm not good enough, I'm not working as hard as anyone else, or, you know, I should be doing this, I should be doing that. Like, what should you be doing? Like, with self-respect and like with like that more like, I guess, like self-compassion side of thing, it's like, I did my best today, I showed up for myself today, and that's all that matters. Instead of ruminating and going down like a downward spiral, you just beat yourself up all the time. And that is what creates this like negativity. And like, if the more you say that to yourself, the more it's going to manifest into your life, and the more it's going to be like fitting into your life. So if it's like, I should be working harder, it's like the universe is going to be like, okay, we'll give you the hardest thing that you can do. And you're just going to be like, going to feel like you're failing because you're not giving yourself the time to have a break. And you probably are someone who gets overwhelmed by everything because you think you can't handle anything, when in reality you can handle things, but you're not giving your body the space that it needs to reset essentially. So like I said about the car, if you always have your fucking foot on the gas and you don't fucking stop, basically, you're going to like fucking wear that car down to empty like really quickly. But if you stop, start, you're probably going to have a lot more fuel, or a lot more like fuel in your tank essentially to keep going. But if you just floor it for like an hour, you'll probably run out of fuel, and you probably will have to stop, and you probably have to rest. You're going to be forced to rest because your body is like, we need more fuel. We need to keep going. So I think that is probably a good analogy. I don't know if that fucking makes sense, but recognizing when you need rest and allowing that to be there, allowing yourself to be in that space. Because if you take 5 minutes out of your day to rest, but you're just scrolling on your phone, is that really resting? Like, you're just scrolling and you're still hitting that dopamine addiction, basically. If you truly respected yourself, what would you be doing to fill your cup up? Because if you don't respect yourself, you would lead to burnout and doing all those things. That is not self-respect. That is just damaging your body because you feel like you need to keep doing more, when in reality you're just damaging your body. And that's actually a form of disrespect, because if you truly respected yourself, you would listen to your body and what it needs. And I feel like these were the things that helped me get my cycle back, because the more I chose to take an outcome differently, I was able to change the narrative, for example. So like for me, it would be like working all day and not having a break. But if I feel myself like, when I'm working, I'm like not really paying attention, or I'm like, I never really go on my phone, but I notice like if like I start to like, I'm more distracted, or I'll like message people and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, noticing it and not beating yourself up about it, because if you beat yourself up about it, are you really respecting yourself again? So not beating yourself up about it. Can you take 5 minutes or 10 minutes to go for a walk? If you have that availability, can you take 5 minutes to just breathe? Because you build it all up, and what are you releasing? You're releasing nothing. So, but when you go to bed, as soon as you hit the pillow, you probably notice that your thoughts are racing constantly. So you're probably noticing like your thoughts won't stop. But it's because you haven't given yourself the time throughout the day to let go. It's like when you train, you like release stress. And like people could look at me and be like, oh, well, like I don't want to do what you do. It's like, fine, you don't have to do what I do. But do you respect yourself enough to listen to your body? Like, are you going to take, even like going to do a sauna, releasing excess toxins as well? But yeah, set yourself boundaries without feeling guilty as well. So if you have, let's say, people in your life that don't really respect your boundaries, and they keep pushing you, it's more like saying no when things don't align in your well-being. And you can kind of feel when something doesn't align with your well-being, you probably feel really anxious, probably feel really like tight, like chested and stuff. So just practice saying no to things that you feel like are not going to benefit you. And that's respecting yourself as well. Even with like conversations and stuff like that, if someone's really hurt you, learning to say no and like pause and just being like, I don't have the time and space for this right now. That is respecting you and your needs to kind of sit with yourself for a bit, and having that boundary of being like, this is what I need right now. And trusting that your own judgment and what you need is better than everyone else's opinion. Because if you listen to everyone else's opinion and what they want you to do, you're not really listening to yourself, and it's going to get old, and you're going to be like questioning yourself who you are as a person. So what do you want as a person, and what do you want out of your life? Because that is more important than what everyone else wants as well. Because the more you respect yourself, the more other people are going to respect you. Because if you hold yourself to a, I guess, like higher frequency and vibrational energy, which is what I have been learning more about, it's like this whole year has been me changing like my energy and like how I show up in my day-to-day. Because before, I was tired, I was exhausted, I couldn't sleep, I was sleeping 4 hours, like waking up during the night, and it gets really exhausting and repetitive. But the reason that is because I wasn't allowing my body to rest. I wasn't changing any thoughts, I was distracting myself. So all these things come into play. Are you really sitting with yourself and your emotions? Are you distracting yourself constantly? And if you are, what can you change? Because distracting yourself isn't a form of self-respect. Distracting yourself is a form of just numbing, and it's basically just numbing your emotions and stuff like that as well, because you're just trying to forget about everything, which can be like gaming, drugs, alcohol, all those things. It's a form of like numbing, basically. So basically, whatever you'll know what feels good for you. So like for me, I didn't train today because I woke up really sore, and I'm like, I know that if I train, like I'm just going to be really sore. So my body today needs like yoga. So like today, and I'm heading into like my luteal phase, which is like what Jen talks about. You're in your like slower period before your period, basically. So you end up a bit more like tired. You probably are prone to more negative thoughts. So it's like, what do I truly want and need in this moment? And what can I do to basically meet my needs right now? Because if you keep going against it, it's going to keep manifesting essentially. It's like, the more you ignore it, the more it's going to come up in your day-to-day. You're going to be more angry, irritated, Sleep will be bad. You'll be more distracted and stuff like that as well. But the more that you practice and the more like you do these things as well, it's going to be a lot beneficial for you in the future. So for me, I always try and prioritize 5-10 minutes of stillness, like the midday, for example. So in the morning, I'm always going for a walk. I'm not thinking about anything else. I'm just going for a walk because I want to, and that's going to help me fill my cup up first. And then I'll probably do some journaling and then some EFT tapping. And I'm not going to beat myself up for not doing it, essentially. So if you keep beating yourself up for not doing something, that is perfectionism taking over, and that's your perfectionism mindset taking over, because your perfectionism is like what's going to keep you stuck, because you feel like you have to do things perfectly, and that's where you avoid failure, because you think if you fail, like something went wrong, when in reality it's like that self-respect of being like, no, today I did this and this and I still moved forward, but I didn't do everything I wanted to, and that's okay. I didn't have the energy for it, but I'll try again tomorrow, and if I don't feel okay tomorrow, that's fine. Move on. So it's just like changing that narrative as well. And people say they don't have time for that. I'm like, how do you not have time to respect yourself? How do you not have time out of your day to do that for you and your mindset? Because you feel like that rush is what's going to, because you're so addicted to like that cortisol, the adrenaline. Whenever you feel like a sense of calmness or stillness, your body's going to think there's something wrong. So it's learning to trust that and be like, no, I'm okay. I'm safe in this moment. I can take 5-10 minutes out of my day to just prioritize some sort of stillness, because I guarantee you in like a month or 3 months time, you're going to notice huge benefits and differences. Like you'll probably be more focused in conversations, because stillness allows you to be more focused, because stillness allows you to be like recenter yourself essentially, because you're allowing yourself time to just recenter and focus, which allows you to like, I guess when thoughts come up, you just kind of like gently make them pass through, if that makes sense. Like you're not focusing on the thought, you're focusing on how you feel in your body. So you'll be more present. You'll be more present for one. You're just practicing a skill. So skills take time. So I notice if I don't do it for a long period of time, it's a lot harder for me to recenter myself. It's a lot harder for me to take breaks, because this is what I really struggle with right now, is like taking breaks, because it's like I get scared if I take a break. It's more like I'm like going behind, and I get more anxious when I take a break. And I'm like, this is what my body actually needs, because if I'm anxious doing this, it means my body really needs this to kind of like, it's holding onto something and it needs to let go of something as well. So that is how you can respect yourself, because if you avoid it, you're not respecting yourself essentially. So what I had to really unlearn, so 3 to 4 years of me being like go, 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 and not really allowing myself to rest, that is what actually made me lose my period in the first place. So why would I go back to doing that? I could go back to doing that and I'd probably feel like shit still. So when you notice, like when you start to sleep better and when you start to do these things for yourself, you notice that you show up a lot better, and you probably end up getting a lot more done throughout your day as well. So I notice that if I don't meditate, I don't go for a walk, I don't sleep well, the next day, it's a lot harder for me to focus. It's a lot harder for me to get into work, and it's a lot harder for me to show up like mentally and emotionally. So because I didn't respect myself, obviously these things are going to show up in my day to day. So I'm going to be more tired. I'm going to be more prone to being like agitated, because I haven't taken the time to fill my cup up first. And people always, that's why I feel like when people actually start doing it and they notice it changes, why would you stop something that makes you feel good? So it's like, for me, I used to always hate meditation. I thought it was bullshit. I used to always hate slowing down because I thought it was bullshit. I was like, what is the point of doing that? Like, what is the point of rewiring your thoughts? Like, it's bullshit. But you manifest every single day. You tell yourself, I don't believe in this. I don't believe in manifestation, or I don't believe in meditating. You tell yourself that, you're going to start to believe that as well, because I believed that for so long. And it wasn't until I started doing it, I realized the benefits of it. And I went in with an open mind. And when I went in there with an open mind, I was able to be like, oh, this actually does work. Or like, oh, I notice I'm actually sleeping better. Or I'm working less, but I'm getting more done. So it's like, oh, I don't have to work this much to get somewhere. Or it's like, oh, I know my body's had enough. I'm not saying don't work hard, because that's not what I'm saying. But like, I notice that I can get a lot more done when I take care of myself first. And you as a person, if you're successful in like yourself and how you carry yourself, other areas are going to grow. If you're feeding yourself negative thoughts and how you speak to yourself, it's going to be a lot harder for you to grow as a person, because you always grow, you're trying to grow out of lack, and you can't grow out of lack, and you can't, if you're not grateful for where you're at. I use it as the universe, people might use it as God, but the universe, why would the universe give you things if you're not appreciative of where you are at right now? Why would the universe give you something if you're always saying that you don't have something? So it's like, if you start acting like that now, the universe is going to be more open to giving you things and more opportunities, because you've actually, you're not holding on to the handles of life so tightly. You've let go of the rails, and you're like giving yourself a chance to breathe, essentially. You're giving yourself space to open up new possibilities. And if you're not allowing yourself space to open up to new opportunities, then that's when you're going to notice like that, not the burnout, but like the tiredness, the fatigue, and the pushing through and pushing through. And like I said, I never believed in meditating. I never believed in slowing down, because I was like, it's just a waste of time. And that's what I held on to for so long. But I'm like, I haven't tried it. So why am I saying that? And when I tried it, I instantly felt better, and I could show up in my day-to-day a lot more and better and easier. I was able to act like the person I wanted to become, because it was easier for me to step into that, because I gave myself space, and I allowed myself space and time, and not holding on to the outcome, and trusting the process. When you let go of the outcome and trust the process, that is giving yourself self-respect by allowing yourself to just trust and let go of things, which is like what I really struggle with right now. But I think that's what allowed me to get my cycle, was letting go of outcomes, trusting the process, doing the daily steps and not overthinking it, and really just allowing myself to be like still. And you'll notice the first few times you do it, it's going to be hard, but the more you do it, it's going to be a lot easier. And that's how I guess like allowed myself to slow down. Because now that I know the benefits of slowing down, I notice myself when I don't slow down. When I don't slow down, I notice that I'm more agitated. I don't sleep well, and my thoughts are racing all the time, especially before bed. So I notice that now, when I take those moments out of my day for stillness or slowing down, I'm a lot better showing up mentally. I'm a lot more clear-headed, and I can get more work done because I'm not distracted, because I've actually taken the time out for self-care. I hope that makes sense. And then doing it, and then when you don't do it, you realize the benefits of actually doing it. That was a ramble, but I feel like it's just something that people need to hear. I think it's just like shifting out of that self-criticism and allowing to be more open and giving yourself space to grow, because if you don't give yourself space to grow, it's not going to work. So how to shift from that self-criticism to that more self-respect mindset, essentially. So first one is always being like an observer, and like observing the thoughts, essentially observing how you speak to yourself. So identify that critical voice that you have. So notice when you're being self-critical, notice when you wake up and you don't feel that good in the morning, or write it down before you go to bed of all the thoughts you had that day, and then being like, well, how do I want to think differently? Because if you don't want to think differently, it's not going to change. So it's like thinking differently is going to allow you to be that person. And then like ask yourself, would you say that to a friend? Because if you're telling yourself, I can't do this, I can't do that, what would you say to a friend if they told you that? You'd be like, fuck yeah, you can do that. So like, why couldn't you do that? But anyway, it's just reframing that narrative is the next step. So if you're constantly telling yourself those things, how can you reframe it to be something completely different? So if you're telling yourself, I'm lazy for slowing down, I'm lazy for resting, is that really respecting yourself and your needs? Or is that not what you value as a person? So it's just being like, I'm doing my best and today was a tough day. I'm not lazy, I'm doing my best and today was a tough day. I didn't sleep well last night, but I got through it. So it's just like reframing how you speak to yourself, essentially. And that over time, it's going to feel weird at the start. The more you do it, the easier it's going to become, because you can always look for different ways to speak to yourself. Setting boundaries with yourself and other people. Self-respect means not letting those negative thoughts take over. So if you notice that you're experiencing a lot of negative thoughts or a lot of negativity, it's respecting yourself and being like, do I as a person want to keep believing this and continue this story? So let's just say, like, if you had a toxic friend, or like you have someone in a relationship that keeps hurting you, would you let them keep doing that to you? Do you really respect yourself that much to let them keep doing that to you? Like, you as a person deserve better than that. So if you respect yourself, people are going to be like, oh fuck, like I should really respect her as a person. So respect yourself. Celebrate small wins. No matter how big or how small the progress is, if you went through the day and you were more confident than usual, you respect yourself a lot more than usual, that is a win. that is, anything is a win. If you slowed down for 5 minutes and it wasn't the greatest, but you took that time out of your day to do it, don't beat yourself up about it. You still went and did it. You still took 5 minutes out of your day to try your best to prioritize yourself. And this is where I feel like we're only human and we can get stuck in these negative thought patterns, but it's what you do about it. So for me, I do get into that a little bit. I'll slow down. I'll try to take minutes. I'll try to take time out of my day to slow down, but sometimes it's not how I wish it would go. But it's just being like, okay, I did it and I tried my best, and not being like, I'm not going to make progress now. And because you still will make progress because you're still trying. It's like when you go to the gym. Sometimes you don't have a good gym sessions, but you're like, oh, I'm not going to go. Or I'm not going to do it because I won't make progress today, because I'm not going to go because I feel like shit. So why would I go if I'm not going to make progress? But you're still going to show up because it helps you and it makes you feel good. So it's the same with slowing down. Speak to yourself like someone you love. So speak to yourself like someone you love. So practice more like kinder words to yourself, and practice more like that self-compassion mindset, because the more that you can take every opportunity as growth and as a lesson, you're going to be able to bounce back a lot quicker instead of beating yourself up about it and then going down the fucking negative bandwagon for a week and no one hears from you. So doing like, I'm doing my best and that is enough, instead of being like, but this person's doing this and this and this. No, this person is doing that and that's their journey and that's their life. But what do they always tell you? That they're tired, they're burnt out, they're always doing this and this and this and this. So if you can prove to yourself that doing this is going to help you and be a better person, it doesn't not matter what everyone else is doing. If they want to continue doing what they're doing, that is not your job to fix. What do you need and what do you want right now? And that is why affirmations are so important. And I feel like this is why people are able to change what they think, because if people don't believe in manifestation, you've literally manifested the life you always had. So if you believe that you can't start a business, why would you start a business? Because you feel like you can't. There's a limiting belief that you can't, or I can't make XYZ about money because it's not possible unless I work all the time. Or it's like, I need to work really hard for money. It's like a belief. Who's told you that? And where'd that belief come from? It's always looking at your beliefs and where they've come from. Or I'm not beautiful, or I'm not this, or I'm not this and this and this. It's always like something. So it's like changing that narrative into something that you want to believe, because obviously what you've been telling yourself isn't working. So there's that. So self-respect isn't about ignoring these flaws. It's about nurturing and being more accommodating to those parts of you, because there is always going to be a part of you that like thinks like this. So there's always going to be a part of me that doesn't really quite trust myself, but it's like, what can I do to make that part feel heard and seen and cared for? It's like your inner child essentially. So like if you have a belief about money, or like I have to work really hard to get money, that is a belief that you've told yourself. So it's like you always believe that money is hard work. So it's like reframing that thought, and there'll be times where that thought will creep back in, but it's like nurturing that part of you instead of beating it up and being like, I don't want you, go away. You're ignoring it and pushing it down. It's only going to create more resistance. So it's like, I understand that you think like this, but it's okay. I've got this, and I trust myself to believe in this new thought, because everything is just a thought, and whatever you put energy into, it's going to keep growing. So if you are putting energy and focus into something else, how is that not going to grow? If you focus on this, whatever plant you want to water, that plant is going to grow. So whatever you don't water, it's going to die. Okay. So thing that you can take away from this is ask yourself, notice one self-critical thought today and reframe it into like a more empowering thing, or a more empowering phrase, and turn it into self-respect. So noticing that you are worthy as a person you already are. Be kind to yourself, especially being kind to yourself is very, very important, because beating yourself up and all these negative thoughts are just going to create more havoc on your health and your life. So yeah, have more self-respect for yourself, love yourself, and that's all. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. I'm sorry for talking so fast. I need water and I just need to get off this couch. But yeah, hopefully enjoy this episode and hopefully you learned something. But yeah, I need some water and I'm going to go. Goodbye.